However, digital ID, that might fall in a completely different category, because this is apparently happening. Keir Starmer appears set on extending digital ID to dominate Britain's daily lives during a visit to India, where digital IDs are essential for accessing state benefits and filing taxes. He lauded their biometric system covering 1.3 billion people. Public support for digital IDs plummeted from 35% to minus 14% following his endorsement. Yet Starmer seems determined to push forward with his vision of what some see as a Big Brother-style society. For others, it's a bit of obvious progression and convenience. Let's speak to our friend Alan Miller, founder of the Together Declaration. Here we are again, Alan. We spoke, a couple of weeks ago on this. It was only coming in for one reason, and that was like a work check thing for immigration, and that was it. Don't be alarmed, it was just for immigration. Nobody could work out quite how that would even work. Here we are, fast forward, what seems like 10 minutes, and we've now got new uses, apparently, for digital ID.
That's right, Ian. What we've got is a situation where everything from tax to benefits, child allowance, a range of areas. And this is it's not just mission creep, it's an attempt to be all-encompassing in all our lives. And make no mistake, if they were able to implement this digital ID, it would go after us in all of these areas. But they're not going to be able to do it. Just let's, for the record, note that he, at the conference, said that he wanted the NHS digital for millions of people. We also know that company directors are being told that, and there's 8 million of them, that company directors are being told that you won't be able to sign up as a company director after November without being on digital ID, and 8 million of you are going to have to do it within a year. And we're saying absolutely no way. We've got an open letter petition for that's going to Companies House and going to all the big trade organisations in Britain and across the board to the cabinet and the government and saying no. We're encouraging directors to get their fellow directors all involved and to tell their accountants and the Institute of Chartered Accountants and make a resounding no. These are threats. They are not compulsory. And the irony of the Prime Minister, of Starmer being in India and talking about how wonderful it is to learn these things from Ardagh, who we know, the digital ID system leaks like a sieve. Many reports have said that their data has been not just breached but sold off, that many who are trying to have benefits have been mixed up with others and haven't had access to it, and a range of terrible things that have happened with the data. And so what you have is the attempt to, on the one hand, say, well, it was about stopping the boats, and then people say, well, how's it going to do that? It's not going to do that. And say, well, actually, no, it's going to do all these things. Lisa Nandy mentioned it as well, didn't she? She said it could have many more uses. But in the end, they've got a goal to implement this across the board with directors, with the NHS, with children, with giving them a digital ID. And we're saying that across the board, no to that. So we'd encourage everyone, there's a new open letter petition around directors specifically, but across the board to get involved in challenges, because they are not going to be able to implement this if we decide we're not having it.
Can I just ask, Alan, is your contention that it may, there could be an innocuous use for this, but going forward, it's very easy to corrupt that initial use? Is that I
think there were it's a very good question. There are a number of concerns. One is that we've seen hundreds of millions of data breaches. For instance, 125 million Americans in 2025. In Britain, we've seen things like Marks and Spencer's, Heathrow grounded in Afghanistan, all the issues of those data breaches. They can't keep the people safe. We've seen that across the world. So there's data breaches and our privacy and information and cyber attacks. There's what happens if you can't sign on. You can't sign on because there's a power cut. Can you not engage in things because they're net zero often? Or you can't sign on because the government decides that you shouldn't sign on for whatever reason. Maybe you've overstepped your carbon footprint. Maybe we've got a new lockdown. Maybe they've decided you're the wrong type of person saying the wrong type of thing and social media account gets shut down. All of which, by the way, we've seen some of these things, haven't we, Ian? We've seen that there's been censorship. We've seen in the lockdown files and the Twitter files there were spy units. We've seen that people were shadow banned and censored on Meta and Instagram. Mark Zuckerberg's admitted it. Pressure from the government in the States and from the security services. We've seen that there's a two-tier approach You can say some things and go to prison. You can do other things and not go to prison for as long. There's a whole range of concerns. And the idea that you have a centralized digital ID system by the state, often where you'll now need, it will be a biometric system, right? So your facial recognition to sign on. So you might not even be able to sign on to the internet, right? You have to have permission to even engage in the public square. All of these things are creating an infrastructure of a checkpoint society where we're QR codes, where we're walking permission papers to participate in society. The British public never asked for this. It was never in any manifesto. It's absolutely unacceptable, and we'd invite everyone to get involved with togetherdeclaration.org and say no and push back against this.
All right, Alan, always very thorough stuff from you. Thank you. Alan Miller, he's the founder of the Together Declaration. Let's get a word with the journalist Andrew Orlowski, columnist at the Telegraph. Afternoon to you, Andrew. I know you've written a fairly extensive piece on this and something you feel very strongly about. What is your take on, well, firstly, what you've just heard from Alan and this new sort of extended reason why we might get digital ID? It literally was 3 weeks ago when we were told it was very simply a permit to show you can legally work here.
That's right. Thanks for having me on, Ian. Yeah, I've been working with a whistleblower since January on the security aspect of the one login system which underpins digital ID. Oh, and by the way, can I digress for a moment, because Alan said a couple of things that are not true, really, and it's actually much worse than he says. Digital ID is already here. It's called the one login system. All the Brit card is going to be is the one login system plus the government wallet, which has already been demonstrated, with some credentials in it, and they've already said your driving license is going to be in it.
When you say the one login system, you didn't, so if I go to HMRC, for example, there's a login, is it that?
It's going to replace the one that's there already. That's called Government Gateway, which works very efficiently. There's no need to replace it. But this is it's going to be mandatory at Companies House from 18th of November. I mean, Alan said, "Oh, we don't have to do this. We're not going to take part." You're going to be fined if you don't take part and you're a company director after 18th of November. The digital ID is already here. All it's lacking is a piece of legislation that makes it mandatory.
When you say it, can you expand on that a little bit more, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't
it's already here, because a lot of people are going, well, where is it? I'd like to know.
The one login system was announced in 2021, and that's why my whistleblower was working. He was working on the cyber risk and assessment part. They raised issues, really serious issues, like part of this has been written in Romania, and that team was sidelined. Then in March, there was a stress test, a security test, that demonstrated that hackers can take control of the system at will. And once they're there, they can do anything they want. I think Together really needs to get up to speed on digital ID. They mean well. A lot of people who want digital ID don't realise that we're being forced into using an insecure system that's been developed over the last 3 or 4 years. Millions of us are already in this, and company directors, all of them will be in it from the 18th of November.
So who's kind of behind it? Because the one thing, I don't often speak in Keir Starmer's defence, but this isn't Keir Starmer's idea, right? He didn't wake up one day and go, hey, let's have some digital ID. This has been rumbling for a long time. And arguably, if Rishi Sunak had won the last election, he'd have been making a similar announcement.
Maybe, maybe not. This is the second attempt they've done to create a digital ID. And the first, I mean, they've now spent over 700 million on 2 ID systems. The first didn't work and nobody wanted to use it. That was called Verify. And in 2021, on the day that was scrapped, Michael Gove said, here's 400 million for another one, which will log you into various sites. It's always for the bureaucrats' convenience. I think I agree with Alan Miller on that aspect. It's not for our convenience, but bureaucrats have this sense of hygiene. They like everything. They think they can bring order to the world, and an ID is perfect.
So it's not the sinister thing, which obviously, you know, we've all read a bit of Huxley or Orwell, and, you know, it has echoes. And I know it's a game you can make all sorts of things fit around that if you want to. That isn't your central contention, that you know, there's a kind of grand master sitting there, the Illuminati are going to be controlling us with a big old joystick. It's not that. It's more that this is just completely bonkers because it's not safe and secure. Is that central to what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter. Eventually, all the databases get linked up even if there's no plan, because bureaucrats go, well, look, this is going to cost us nothing. We'll just link this
Correct.
part over here to this part over there. But long before we get there, we're all going to fall into this enormous hole where there's potential digital identity fraud, which happens every day. This just makes it easier. I think the system, the work on one login should be frozen. It should be independently inspected, which is not happening at the moment. The team that does the security is marking its own homework. And that should freeze this, really. That should take at least a year or two before we know who's in the system already.
Is there anyone agitating in parliamentary terms to advance the argument that you're putting forward here?
Yeah, there's been some great questions being put since April by Baroness Finn, Lord Clement Jones. I might miss somebody off. David Davis is very interested in this. But it really should be, when Together stands up and talks about digital ID, it needs to know that the system is pretty much already been built. We're going to be forced to use it. I mean, Nigel Farage said, I'm not going to take part. Well, this is why I called it Starmer's poll tax back in June. If you want to secure your identity and that of your family against fraud, it means kind of going to prison, just like staying off the electoral roll or not paying the poll tax meant going to prison. It's a horrible choice to put before people.
Indeed. Well, Andrew, listen, we will speak again on this, I'm sure, but thank you for outlining more of the points you were putting across on your column today. Andrew Orlowski, columnist at The Telegraph. Let's speak with Alexander Yassad. He's the Director of Government Innovation Policy at the Tony Blair Institute. We spoke a couple of weeks ago on this, Alexander. I don't think you're part of the Illuminati, if they do exist, but nonetheless, you heard, I mean, there are genuine concerns. I'm sure the Tony Blair Institute and, of course, the man himself, Tony Blair, has long advocated for a digital ID and believes there are just basic pragmatic reasons. That might be so, but I think the point that Andrew was just making there is a reasonable one. I mean, we are talking about a lot of data and huge potential risks here.
We are talking about data that the government already holds. We're not talking about creating new centralised databases. We're not talking about expanding the role of the state. It is about things that government does already, enabling it to do those things better. And actually the kind of sprawl between different identity systems that already exists, I would absolutely agree with Andrew, is a cybersecurity risk. Creating a system that puts this all under control, that allows us to really focus on making systems secure, learn from best world practice on how to do this. We're not the first ones to do this. We're not blazing a path here and taking a massive risk. We are, in the sense, followers on digital ID, think that there's lots we can learn from around the world and make the system safe and secure.
Why do we need it?
Because it will make public services better, because it will make people's lives much easier. We all know the kind of spaghetti mess of dealing with government that there is today, very long waits, very confusing and complicated means of proving things about yourself that the government already should know.
But we have, as was mentioned by Andrew, the gateway system for taxation, and that sort of sorts out HMRC and tax, national insurance, that kind of stuff. We've got that. Your driving licence is a card now rather than a piece of paper, and the passport, I think, already is, or was it driving licence? One of the two is going to be going onto your mobile phones anyway within the next year. So we've got some fairly, I know they don't always work perfectly, and it's very, very annoying when you get stuck in the little labyrinthine world of tech and databases. But broadly speaking, it's all there. If you put it in one place, you sort of increase the risk of data sabotage.
I think it's important to understand it's not about putting everything in one place. It's making sure that everything works together well. Because at the moment, for example, you might have a government gateway ID. I think I have 4 or 5 different government gateway IDs. Remembering the passwords for every one of them actually puts me at risk, because it means that I'm not always in control of all of this information. And if it comes out of date, I won't see that. If someone has gained unauthorized access, I won't be able to see that. So this sprawl does actually create a lot more risk, because it means that the surface threat level is much higher. And again, this is something where people who come to the UK from elsewhere, they see the system we have and they go, what's going on here? Why is this so complicated? This could be so much simpler.
If everything is in one place, I mean, you're aware of these arguments. I'd imagine when you sit around in the meeting room over there at the Tony Blair Institute, someone must raise the issue and go, well, hang on a sec, what else could this be used for? You can put all sorts of other elements. There's obviously the health thing. We remember COVID and the people that were jabbed and weren't jabbed. One would have to, I think, reasonably assume that this would play a huge part in that should it happen again. There's issues such as environmental considerations, a lot of issues around green and net zero. Do you overdo your carbon use? Will that card stop me from putting petrol in my car? If I've already put 30 quid's worth in that week, will I get a bleep and a no, I'm sorry, like a credit card can, and say you've already exceeded your use this week? These are the sort of areas, the sort of overreach that concern people. And they're not conspiracy theories. I mean, they're completely reasonable questions.
We don't do this at the moment, right? What we're talking about is making systems that we already have work better. This is what digital ID does. It's really quite.
But the concern is going forward, isn't it? Is what could it be used for?
I don't think digital ID is the fulcrum of those concerns. I think people are absolutely right to have debates, and some of them will have concerns about government overreach in different parts of our lives. Those are debates we should have. Any polity will have those types of debates, but they're not debates about digital ID. They are debates about what government will and won't do. Digital ID is not directly relevant to any of those debates.
OK. Alexander, thank you. Alexander Yesad, who's Director of Government Innovation Policy at the Tony Blair Institute. Well, you may, of course, respond to that by going, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? He's from the Tony Blair Institute. You heard Andrew Orlowski before that, columnist at The Telegraph, who's been looking at this for a long time. And, of course, Alan Miller, who regularly helps us out on these kind of stories. What is the big deal for you? 034